Well, good afternoon. Good afternoon and welcome to another Webinar Wednesday, hosted by Cal State Bakersfield Small Business Development Center. Good afternoon, I'm Kelly Bearden. I'm the director of the center, and welcome to our Webinar Wednesday, edition number 327. I think we have a really good one today, talking about some of the great innovation grants available through the Small Business Innovation Research Program. And we'll be bringing out Chuck Eason in just a little bit. And in the meantime, we will be talking about a variety of other things, including the disaster that's happening, that happened near Lake Isabella. So what is up today? Today being October 30th, 2024. Well, today we take a big look at government funding for innovation and talk about all of the funding that's available for those that are looking at innovative and technology-based businesses to the tune of about $4 billion nationally on an annual basis. So we'll be bringing our expert in just a little bit. In just a moment, we're going to get a live look in with Javier Caltenco, and he is going to be discussing the recently declared SBA disaster relief efforts for the Borel Fire, that pesky problem fire that burned over 60,000 acres in the Kern River Valley, in the areas in the mountains up above and near the Lake Isabella area. So we will talk about some of the relief efforts going on up there. We'll jump into our regular issues of capital quarter and economic quarter, our regular features on economic development and small business development. So capital quarter, we'll have just a little bit more on the rate cuts and more. Our economic corner has kind of breaking news on how the economic performed during the last quarter. And we'll get into a lot of the economic corner in webinars after the election. So we have other small business grant programs and results. So we will be talking about some specific innovation technology programs today, but there are a couple of others that have, one of them that's open and one that recently closed and funded. So we'll talk about a little of those and some of the programs that maybe show up and maybe won't in the future. We'll look at a lot of the tools and resources and some of the information that you need to know to help your small business thrive. Today, your questions will be answered live after the presentation. You can jump in and actually put those questions in the Q&A section. You'll see the question and answer. And also, we have our webinar producer, Maureen Boucharding, and she will actually be working the chat box and putting in the resources that we talk about today, adding those resources that will be able to, or you can grab and go during the webinar today. And despite the fact I had a couple of nice poll questions, we have a jam-packed hour, so I'm not going to do a poll. Come back next week or the week after, and we'll have our poll question for you. So let's get going. And let's bring in our first guest for our live look-in. And we're going to bring in, as I mentioned, Javier Caltenco, and he is the Public Information Officer in charge of the Borel Fire. He comes to us from the U.S. Small Business Administration's actual Sacramento Western Region Disaster and Resiliency and Recovery Unit. And actually, his live look-in is going to be truly live because he is here in our studio today. Javier, welcome so much, and thank you for being here. Come on in and tell us about the disaster.
Yes. Well, first of all, thank you, Kelly, for allowing me to be here. And hello to everybody. I hope everybody's doing well today. Yes. So we are here to provide disaster assistance for those who are affected. We actually provide assistance to homeowners, renters, nonprofit organizations, and businesses of all sizes. And now, just in case, I want everybody to know that the Small Business Administration is the primary source of funds to pay for repairs or replacement costs not fully covered by the insurance. So therefore, this program is basically or primarily for those who have no insurance or their insurance doesn't cover 100%. But then again, we also have individuals who have insurance, and we also suggest those who have insurance to apply with SBA, because there's times when the Small Business Administration may provide you the funds much faster than the insurance, so therefore you can start your recovery process ahead of time. And when you get your funds from the insurance, you can always pay it back. So therefore, so right now, yes, we are providing disaster assistance because of the Borel Fire that happened back in July 24 to August 26. Kern County is the primary county, so therefore, again, businesses, homeowners, renters, and nonprofit organizations can apply for disaster assistance to any of the loans that we have available. We also can provide assistance to the contiguous counties, but that only the small businesses and nonprofit organizations can apply for the economic injury disaster loan that we have available. We do have deadlines, so we want to make sure that those who were affected, if they have any physical damages to their property, they need to apply before December 20th, 2024. For the economic injury, they need to apply before July 21st, 2025. Again, these are these are loans, so therefore they need to be repaid back. Right now, for homeowners and renters, it's as low as 2.68% fixed. For businesses, it's as low as 4%, and for nonprofit organizations, it's 3.25%. Now, some of the benefits of having an SBA loan is that there's no cost to apply, there's no prepayment penalty, there's no obligation to borrow. So therefore, if you have insurance and you apply with SBA, you can always decline the loan. You don't need to accept it. The terms are up to 30 years. The first 12 months is 0% interest rate. And the first 12 months, you don't need to make any payments. So I think that's a very good benefit in terms of what SBA offers. Again, so this is the loans are available for renters, homeowners, private nonprofit organizations, businesses of all sizes who are in a declared area. As we mentioned, this is specifically for Kern County. Now, the types of loans that we have available are for businesses. We have one for physical damages to their, they can use this loan to repair or replace any inventory they had damage to, equipment, supplies, machinery, even real estate. Their limit is up to $2 million. We also have the economic injury disaster loan for businesses and nonprofit organizations. This is a working capital loan to help those businesses in case they are suffering economically. We understand that sometimes the business may take a little longer to notice that they are suffering economically, so therefore we give them more time. But their limit is up to $2 million, and they can use this loan to pay for water, electricity, rent, mortgage, even payroll. Now, we also, as we mentioned, we want to make sure that homeowners, if they were affected as well, they can also take a loan from the Small Business Administration. The limit is up to $500,000 to repair or replace their primary residence. For homeowners and renters, we also have up to $100,000 to repair or replace any personal property they have. Now, it could be furniture, it could be appliances, or it could be even a personal vehicle as well. Now, on top of that, we understand that sometimes the businesses or even homeowners who may need to rebuild completely, we want them to be able to rebuild and rebuild more resilient to any other natural disaster. Therefore, we also offer mitigation improvements which is 20% of the verifiable physical damages. So, for example, if you had $100,000 in verifiable physical damages, you can get an additional 20% for mitigation purposes.
Well, in jumping in here, Javier, would you tell us where you're located and the best way to actually reach out to you? Because you have established as of last week a location in the Kern River Valley in Lake Isabella. So where can you be reached at?
Yes, okay, so we do have a loan outreach center in Lake Isabella, which is 6401 Lake Isabella Boulevard in Isabella, California. For those who cannot make it there, we also have a website where you can apply online, which is lending.sba.gov.
Great, one more time for that address.
Yes, for the Lake Isabella Senior Center is 6401 Lake Isabella Boulevard in Lake Isabella.
Great. Thank you so much. So our role at the SBDC, we've been through quite a few disasters, going back even to the Erskine fire in the same region of Lake Isabella back in 2016. But we can help you with disaster loan applications and evaluate opportunities, because there can be opportunities created by the disaster. One of the things that, as far as opportunities, is I believe, and I'll ask Javier this question later, but I believe that there are resources to help you mitigate future damages. So if you have fires that continually go through there, or if you have, in the case of a flood, I know they have them for floods, to where you can actually do repairs and you can actually spend money and actually get the low interest rate loan to make repairs and additions that prevent future disasters or future need for relief programs. So that could be an opportunity for you. Also leveraging resources, developing an emergency response plan. And also, you know, we talked about the resilience for funding for the next disaster and some of the things that might help you build your business back after it has been impacted by the disaster. So, you know, one thing that Javier mentioned was the economic injury disaster loans. And those, again, are not physical damage, but if your business has been damaged economically, if you have lost your sales, if you've lost the ability to compete and your building is still intact, for example. A couple quick examples could be, let's say you owned a lodge, you know, or maybe a bed and breakfast that was in the area, and fortunately the structure did not burn. However, maybe it cut off access to your property, and maybe you don't have people that want to go up there now that it's still in a recent fire zone. And it could be months before people start coming back. Obviously, the economic injury disaster loan is designed to provide you with low interest rate funding that needs to be repaid, but provides you to be able to stay open or stay actually mitigating those potential risks that you have. So you have that as an example, or you don't even have to be in the fire zone. You can be in other parts of Kern County. Let's say you're in Bakersfield, and maybe you did business with a small little, maybe I'll bet you one is out there somewhere. That would be a lure or fishing plug manufacturer. Maybe they make little fishing plugs in their garage or behind their house. And maybe that their business has been cut off and you sold that particular as the limited exclusive reseller of that product. And your sales are now going to be impacted. So those are a couple of quick reasons on explanations on how this can happen. Again, that's 4% interest rate over 30 years if there has been an economic injury in your particular business. Okay, moving along, we've been talking a lot about this the last year, and that is the beneficial ownership filing. And that is a filing that individuals do if they are a corporation, if they're incorporated, if they are an LLC. They could even be a nonprofit with a for-profit intent. So maybe they have a sector or segment that does something that is more for-profit, even though it's under the umbrella of the nonprofit organization. Those are three examples on why you need to provide the U.S. government through FinCEN, which is the Financial Enforcement Network, Crimes Enforcement Network, provide them some information on who actually owns these corporations. So what it does is it works mostly with those entities that have 20 or less employees, whereas they could be used because of not providing ownership information, they could be used for actual criminal intent. So that is going to be coming along, and whereas we've got a year retrieve from actually filing that, you're going to need to file that if you are one of those types of entities. Okay, so a little bit more on that. We'll have more on this as we come, because there's a lot of compliance issues on Webinar Wednesday that we're going to have to discuss over the next few months. And so a lot of compliance, but really look into the business ownership information filing. That's a new federal requirement, stiff fines coming next year. So a little touch on our weekly feature, the Economic Corner. And today we saw that the gross domestic product, which measures economic output and how strong our economy is, came out earlier this morning and came out with pretty good results, 2.8%. Generally, historically, our economy has grown about 2.5%, 3% over time. And it has stayed there. That is good news for those that want to see, hopefully, lower interest rates on loans and other factors. So good news. And, we're hoping real soon to get back and have programs with our resident economist, Dr. Mark Evans. So that'll be coming up soon, too. Also, our Capital Quarter, we've been trying to get the word out about the new SBA pilot line of credit program, which is a new line of credit if you need a credit line instead of a term loan. That is one of the things that we're working with. And our SBDC advisors are assisting several dozens of clients with funding opportunities. We have a lot of really current-based funding options on our YouTube channel. Talk about that in a second. So if you tuned in for other types of grants, here's a couple of other ones real quick. One of them is the Digital Ready Grant, small business grants sponsored by Verizon. And these particular grants will grant up to $10,000 to cover operational costs such as rent and payroll. And it is designed, you see the purpose. I'm not going to go through that, going to go through these slides quickly, but there are some requirements as far as eligibility, application criteria. You need to create a Verizon Small Business Digital Ready Platform account, complete some courses and coaching sessions. In those coaching sessions with an SBDC advisor here from the CSU Bakersfield SBDC work perfect. So allow us to help you qualify for this particular grant. Fill out the online application after you have become ready. And actually, they are accepting the new round of funding. The next round open until December 20th. It's an excellent opportunity for small business owners to gain some financial assistance while getting the educational resources to boost your business. Another program that closed and recently funded was the Restaurant Care Program. This was for independent restaurants, providing up to $5,000. The grant cycle for 2024 just ended, and this was provided by a number of generally utility companies, gas companies, PG&E, SoCal Gas, and San Diego Gas and Electric. Here in Kern County, we received 13 recipients. 9 of those were in Bakersfield, 2 each in Shafter and Wasco. So this money is getting out there and assisting. Your SBDC advisor can assist you in getting that money also. So whereas we've had a little bit of time off this summer, Webinar Wednesday is back at it again. And coming up on Webinar Wednesday, we're going to be talking about buying, selling, or transitioning your small business. Also accessing capital through the dozens of programs that we work with, including microloan programs. We're going to be talking about some veteran and small business programs with Amazon. A lot of my small businesses I talk to, they have a love-hate relationship with Amazon. They compete directly with Amazon, or maybe they buy some of their products or can benefit by using Amazon. Get the same thing with Costco from people. But we will have Amazon on at some future date, I hope. We'll talk about compliance updates and also corporate filings, some of the things that have changed at the IRS that you need to know about, your year-end tax legal planning, tool tips for 2025. And I mentioned our resident economist is coming back. So a lot of the tools that we have to be able to assist you include the live planning, business planning, and also Vertical IQ, which is a fantastic resource in actually helping small businesses understand their particular market, their competitive advantage or disadvantage, and also how they operate in this ecosystem that they operate in, and many more tools. It has the privileges if you sign up at the SBDC, CSUBSBDC.com, sign up at our particular and sign up to be an SBDC client. You can access all of those particular tools, and you would receive confidential, no cost, no obligation expert consultations from our advisors. Reach out to us and sign up for the program that you're already paying out of your taxes. Which brings us to somebody we're not paying out of your taxes today. Somebody else's taxes, probably. And that would be Mr. Charles Eason. I call him Chuck. He is an SBIR professional, does a wonderful job, has been in this space for a long time. Literally, I've worked with probably about 50 different presenters over a longer career than I'd like to admit. And Chuck's the best. That's all I can tell you. Chuck is the best. He puts his money where his mouth is. You can read about his fine background there, but I'll just tell you something that he's about ready to tell you is that Chuck has received an SBIR. You know, yours truly has applied for the SBIR grant program, and they said, sorry, Charlie, no grant for me. But they gave me great reasons on why I failed and why I did not receive the funding and could have gone back and tried again. One of the great features of the SBIR program. Chuck has worked with a dozen different entities that actually produce a lot that go out, well, a dozen entities as far as federal programs that contribute a lot of their R&D budgets that go to this program. He's earned his BS in engineering from the University of California, San Diego, and an MBA from CSU San Bernardino. Chuck, my friend, always great to have you on. Thank you for joining us today.
All right. Thanks for having me. Yeah, I always enjoy the opportunity to share about this program. I'm a big fan of the SBIR program. Let me share my screen here and bring up my slides. Yeah, so Kelly and I actually go way back. I'm a former SBDC director as well, and I was a director at Napa Valley College for 3 years and Solano College for 12 years, and then I actually started with the Inland Empire SBDC many years ago, back in the mid-90s. But one of the things when I was director, like Kelly, we had people coming in all the time asking, are there grants for my business? And it can be challenging if you're a for-profit business. Kelly mentioned a few grant opportunities earlier that they have there, and some of them might be local grant opportunities. And sometimes there's grant opportunities for nonprofits, for the foundations and other things. But what I liked about the program I'm going to share with you today is a federal grant program called the Small Business Innovation Research Program. And one of the things about it is you actually do have to be a for-profit small business to be eligible for it. And it's an opportunity for you to get up to a couple $1 million in what we call non-dilutive funding. Whenever you're trying to get funding for your business, there's kind of a couple different categories. There's debt financing, which are basically loans that you have to qualify for and pay back. Then there's equity financing, which would be where you give up equity in your company in exchange to maybe an angel or VC or corporate VC to fund your company. And then these grants are what I'd call non-dilutive funding. So you don't have to pay them back, and they're non-dilutive. You don't have to give up any equity in your company. So that's one of the advantages of going after this type of funding. I've been working with clients and securing small business innovation research funding for actually 29 years now. It's going way back to when I first started with the Small Business Development Center. I was running a business incubator down in Southern California at Norton Air Force Base, which had closed down. I was the manager of the Inland Empire Business Incubator. And I remember our actually very first tenant at the incubator was a bright guy from Caltech. He was one of the people that was laid off when the base closed. I worked at TRW there. He was a colleague of mine at TRW, and he'd just got what's called a Phase I grant. I'll explain the different phases, but he had himself and a couple part-time people, and was our first tenant in the incubator down there. And we then, when he moved in, I helped him write what's called his Phase II grant, and successful in securing that, and ended up being our first graduate out of the incubator. And then he went on to win multiple SBIR grants, and he grew his company to about 90 employees and offices around the world, actually. That's my first exposure to it way back in 1995. But I've seen that over and over again, where most of my clients I work with are small 2, 3, 4-person teams typically. Most of them definitely under 10 employees, small companies. They have an idea to they want to get to market, and they can get up to a couple $1 million in this non-dilutive funding to demonstrate the feasibility, whatever their new innovation or technology is. And I want to kind of preface too, this particular grant program is focused on research and development. So it's not for marketing or business development or manufacturing, but it is for research and development to help you demonstrate the feasibility of some new concept or innovation and to commercialize that into a product or service. The program itself has been around quite a while, but I've been helping clients for a long time. And after doing it for about 10 years, I kind of got the itch myself. So I formed a company, and I actually secured what's called a Phase I grant with the National Science Foundation. I was doing a project basically around 3D printing of houses. We could basically take any CAD model. You can see this Buddha CAD model here, and we could produce objects the size of a house. This is a 25-foot tall Buddha that was made out of layers of foam that was kept with a 4-axis water jet. We had a swiveling head, and our technology was called Shape Maker. And you can see Dr. Thomas there in the picture, who's our co-PI of the project at the university. My concept for it was to take the technology and apply it to the construction industry and basically do 3D printing of houses. So we did, in Phase I, we did a 1/12 scale model of my house here in Green Valley and a full-scale curved staircase. And then in Phase II, we did a full-scale structure. This is me in the mechanical engineering lab at the university. This was actually a what's called an STTR project, where we're transferring a technology out of the university. They had already patented it, so I licensed it and was trying to use it for the construction industry. So that was my experience with the program, and I just recently submitted a new STTR grant to continue some of this work around 3D printing of large-scale objects with UC Berkeley, and I'm sitting and waiting now to hear if I get funded on that. But a lot of my clients I've been working with over the years, I've probably the last 10 years, I've worked with over 500 clients for SBIR funding, and they again are small clients. And the program itself, the purpose is really to kind of tap into innovation that small businesses I think could be much more innovative, perhaps even large companies, and to try to solve some of our nation's needs. And there's each one of these different agencies I'll be talking about today has different areas of focus that they're looking to solve some of our problems, whether it's national defense or health or economic development or agriculture or whatever it might be. So they want to tap into a lot of small businesses to help fund some of the R&D. Many of you may have seen this Valley of Death slide. There's different versions of this, but basically here you might have some idea on the left side. You're trying to commercialize it, go to the right side, and you've got to get across this chasm. And to get across that chasm, you need some capital to do that. And this particular program can give you some of that, what we call early stage or C stage funding, to maybe get you, part way across, maybe halfway or 2/3 of the way. But then you still have to find other funding through partners, investors, and customers as well. But this can give you some of that early money to get started with your business. Now, this, even though it's a federal grant program and the federal government is funding your research and development work, you still retain worldwide patent rights to whatever you're developing. The agencies are actually required to keep the information confidential for 20 years from after you start a Phase I or Phase II project. So from a patent standpoint, just applying for a small business innovation and research grant, that's not considered a public disclosure. And the government basically is paying for the R&D, but then you can patent it and use that. And there's certain exceptions where they might have a license to use that if there's like a national emergency and you failed to commercialize it. For example, they might have what they call march-in rights, where they can march in and either force you to commercialize it, I guess, or find someone else if there is some need for it. But overall, I've never seen a situation where the government's caused any issues with the IP and the 20 plus years I've been doing this. So the program actually started, I think in 1983 or so, and Congress just reauthorized it again September 2 years ago. They typically reauthorize like every 5 years or so, the program. And they require agencies that have over $100 million in R&D funding to participate in the SBIR, which stands for Small Business Innovation Research. And you see here, there's 6 agencies that are required to participate in that. And then the agencies that have over $1 billion in R&D budget have to participate in both the SBIR and STTR, which stands for Small Business Technology Transfer. It's kind of a sister program, smaller, maybe $400 or $500 million versus $3 billion or so, $3.5 billion for the SBIR. And I have a slide later on. I'll share with you the kind of the differences between those two programs. So the Congress requires them to set aside right now 3.65% of their extramural R&D budget. Even though it's only 3.65%, that works out to about $4 billion every year that's available. And think of that 3.65% as sort of a set aside. So it's set aside, only for-profit small companies, small businesses can apply for this. And with the $4 billion available every year, California is actually number one on the list. We get about 1/5 of those. So there's probably like 500, what we call Phase I grants here in California every year. So something in California, we're known for innovation. And I always like to show this pie chart. When you're going after grants, you want to know who has the money. So this pie chart shows kind of how that $4 billion is divided up. So these are the 11 agencies I was showing you that participate. And you see here, for example, the Department of Defense, they have the largest R&D budget. So they have like half the pie. And then the National Institute of Health or Health and Human Services, they have like another quarter of the pie. So just between those two agencies, they have 3/4 of the pie. And then the remaining quarter here is divided between their remaining 9 agencies. So they have like Department of Energy, NASA, National Science Foundation. They're still pretty good sized programs. And then these small slivers here, the brown ones, those are the tiny agencies like Department of Education or Department of Transportation or the USDA. So you can get a tell from this kind of the relative size of the different agencies. So you're looking for funding, you want to know what type of funding level they have. And these agencies, they do a solicitation between 1 to 3 times a year. So the small ones like USDA, it's once a year. Same thing, Department of Education, once a year. And the larger ones like DOD, NASA, or NSF, or NIH, they typically have a solicitation like 3 times a year that they put out for topics of things they're looking to fund. And other thing I like to point out here, you see here the green for granting and blue for, whoops, my mouse is too sensitive here, keep switching here. A blue for contracting agencies. There's kind of a different mechanisms. Some of the agencies use a granting mechanism, some use a contract mechanism to get the money out. The main difference, I would say, you see the blue ones here, like NASA or DOD, the contracting agencies. When you look at their solicitations of topics of things they want to fund, they're very specific. So they propose the problem, and then you get to propose the solution to whatever that problem they have. They have some problem they want you to solve for them. So they typically give you the specifications for whatever that is that they want you to solve. Whereas the granting agencies, the green ones here, like NSF or NIH, they have very broad topics, and you get to propose both the problem and the solution. So it's a little easier to fit under maybe the granting agencies to find a broad topic to fit under. The other, I guess, key difference I always like to point out for the granting versus the contracting, the granting agencies like NSF or NIH, USDA, they typically are not going to become a customer or buy anything from you. So they'll fund your research and development efforts, what they call like Phase I, Phase II grants, but they're not going to become a customer of yours. Whereas the contracting agencies like the DOD or NASA, if you solve their problem during what we call the Phase I, Phase II grants, then they could potentially become a customer in what we call a Phase III contract. So the legislation allows them to do a sole source contract. So they don't even have to go out to bid. They can just contract with your company for whatever solution is that you came up for them during the Phase I and Phase II part of the research work. So that's a, I guess, important difference or advantage for maybe the contracting agencies. They might be a little more difficult to work with, but then ultimately you can end up with a government customer out of it as well. And there's a few other minor differences about how they do the review. Typically, contracting agencies use internal reviewers, and then the granting ones use external reviewers. So there's a few other differences as well between them. But I typically recommend searching all the agencies when you're looking for topics. Is like for example, the DoD, they fund almost anything. They they do health related stuff. They do health research. They have the VA hospitals. My wife actually worked at the VA hospital in Loma Linda when we were in Southern California, worked in research, and they fund all sorts of stuff. They basically, I'm up by Travis Air Force Base here, and then each base is a city basically, so they have everything that a city's going to need. So it's worth looking at the DoD a lot of times for whatever you're doing. So some of the agents, there might be 2 or 3 agencies that you qualify for that could potentially fund whatever you're doing. If you're doing ag tech, you could, of course, you'd look at probably USDA, but then you could look at the National Science Foundation. They have a new ag tech topic that they're doing as well. Now, to be eligible to participate, as I mentioned earlier, you do have to be a for-profit business, and you have to be a small business, which is by SBA standards up to 500 employees, which is huge. That's not small, but most of these are small. My clients are definitely 5 to 10 or less probably employees. The other requirement here you see for eligibility, I always have to point out, is the company has to be 51% owned by a U.S. citizen or permanent resident alien. You can have VC ownership as well, but as long as you're not exceeding that 50%. And the other thing here too, the research and development has to be done here in the United States. So this is federal taxpayer dollars, so they want the money spent here in the U.S. There's a few exceptions to that rule. If you can show that you have to go outside the U.S., you can't get the work done here, then you can request approval from the agency to do that. I've had a few clients that have done that. I had one client that was doing a heart medication that was based on a snake venom, and it was a lot of the R&D was done by a university down in South America, so they got approval to do some of the work outside of the U.S. But in general, they want the money we spent here. The other bullet here I show is the PI stands for Principal Investigator. That's the person who's basically primarily responsible for managing the grant. They have to be primarily employed with the small business at the time of award. So that can be a challenge sometimes. A lot of times the principal investigator, PI, is one of the co-founders. It could be the CEO, CTO, or one of the founders. Is it's hard to convince somebody to work on one of these short-term projects, if there's not a guarantee of long-term employment. And the way they define this too is being primarily employed. That basically means you can't work more than 49% time somewhere else, and it's based on a 40-hour work week. So that means you can't work more than 19.6 hours somewhere else. So you can't say I work 40 hours in my business and 40 hours somewhere else, and you're 50% time. It's 19.6 hours. If you're over that, then you don't qualify to be the PI. So it's something to keep in mind when you're looking to apply for these. You have to find somebody, your company, or hire somebody that can meet that qualification. This is I can show this distribution. You can see a lot of them are definitely under 20 employees. A lot of them are first-time awardees as well for the program. Now, the way they dole out the $4 billion, they have these 3 phases. So a phase 1 grant is small, typically up to like $300,000, depending on the agency, and those are usually 6 to 12 months in duration. And that's all about demonstrating the feasibility of your innovation X to do Y. So it's usually that it could be a study, it could be a simulation. If it's hardware, it could be a benchtop prototype or breadboard prototype, basically kind of a laboratory prototype. So you're demonstrating feasibility in phase 1. And then once you demonstrate feasibility, you're eligible to go on to the phase 2 grants, which are where the real money's at. That's, again, depending on the agency, is between $1 to $2 million. And those are 2-year grants. And what you're doing there is what I would call a field prototype. So you're testing out in the field, out in the real world environment. So if it's with the U.S. Department of Agriculture, USDA, you could be literally testing it in the agriculture fields, a new fertilizer or whatever it might be. If it's the Department of Education, you're testing in the classroom, K-12 or colleges. So you're testing out in the field. And then phase 3 is what we call commercialization. And that's where you have to find the customers, partners, investors to get it to market. And technically, there is no such thing as a phase 3 grant. You see, there's no dollar amount shown here. Other than, as I mentioned earlier, if like the contracting agencies, if you solve their problem in phase 1 or phase 2, they could do what's called a phase 3 contract. Now they have to use a different pot of money. It's not SBIR funds, but they have to, find some other internal source of funding. But that's what we call a phase 3 contract for, basically you're commercializing it with a government customer at that time. So that's kind of a quick overview of the program itself. I'll share with you a little bit about, I mentioned the two different programs, the SBIR and STTR. So the agencies used to do separate solicitations, separate topics, but right now they all do one topic, and you just choose whether you want to do an SBIR or STTR. And the main difference is with a SBIR grant, you as the small business, you could do 100% of the work if you wanted to, internally. But you're allowed to outsource or subcontract out up to 1/3 on a phase 1 grant and up to 50% in the phase 2 grant. So if you wanted to bring on board a research university or a federal lab or even another large company or someone, another company to work with you on the project, you could do up to 1/3. Now with the STTR, there you as a small business have to do a minimum 40% of the work by budget. And then you're mandated or required to subcontract a minimum 30% out to a research institution, like a research university or a federal lab. And the last 30%, then you could either keep or subcontract out. So you could potentially subcontract out up to 60%. I just had a client yesterday that was doing a project with NASA Ames Research Center, and they're actually going to propose giving them 60%, which was a lot. So the company only got the 40% part of it. Most of the time I probably see, you don't see subcontracting out 60%. A lot of times it would be, closer to the 30 to 50% range that you would be subcontracting out. I just submitted a STTR myself with UC Berkeley, and I basically did it roughly at that 50% range for the project. Another kind of difference with the STTR too, the principal investigator or PI, is possible for them to stay employed if you were working at say at a university or something. They could stay at the university with the STTR. They can't with SBIR, but they could potentially, depending on the agency. Like some of my NSF do not allow that, but some of the agencies allow the principal investigator to stay at the institution while they're working on the project. But the money always goes to the small business. So think of it this way, you're getting the money and then you're doing a sub-award or subcontract to this big university or federal lab. So the money comes to you, and that's a subcontract that you're managing for the project. Now it is a competitive program. It's pretty consistent across the 11 agencies. About 1 out of 8 to 1 out of 12 are funded for phase 1. And then once you have a phase 1 award, about 1 out of 2 to 1 out of 3 go on to get a phase 3 funding. So that's pretty good compared to venture capital odds. Of course, in phase 2, you're competing against other phase 1 awardees. And then phase 3, not a lot of good statistics on this, but I've heard that sometimes only like 5% or 1 out of 20 have actually commercialized the technology they're developing. So that's where we might be able to assist too, the Small Business Development Center, help you with that go-to-market strategy and commercialization as well, to increase those odds of success of actually getting it to market. And our goal through the Small Business Development Center is to improve these odds for you. So instead of phase 1, 1 out of 8, maybe we can get you to 1 out of 2, 3, or 4, and for phase 2, closer to 1 out of 2 or below. So that's our goal of working with you guys to increase those odds of success. So let's shift gears a little bit and talk about how do you find out what opportunities are out there. So the first step in the process is to find a topic to submit under. So you can't just submit out of the blue. So as I mentioned earlier, the agencies do a solicitation between 1 to 4 times a year that shows the different 11 agencies. And the one thing it's frustrating for me, and there isn't just one SBIR program. It falls under the SBA, but there's not one SBIR program. There's actually 11 So each agency has their own budget, their own web page, their own proprietary submission platform, their own format. So they each do their own separate solicitations. So you can see here the different time frames, like as I mentioned, like the USDA is once a year. So you only have opportunity and, usually do like September, October time frame. Same thing like Department of Education is usually doing January. But then the big ones like DOD might be 3 times a year, or the NSF or NIH. So you can go search these solicitations, and there's a couple ways you can do that search. One is you can go to a webpage. It's SBIR.gov. This is the official SBA funded website. They just revamped it. And you can actually do a keyword search here of all 11 agencies. So you can look through and you can search just Department of Agriculture, or you can just search DOD or all of them. And you can see what opportunities are available out there that are currently open, or you can look at past solicitations as well. So that's one place you could go, is do a keyword search at SBIR.gov. The other thing you can do is, I mentioned there's 11 different SBIR programs. You can go directly to each one of the agency's SBIR webpage. So if you just Google NSF SBIR or USDA SBIR or DOD SBIR, it's usually the first thing that'll pop up under the Google search. And then you could go to their webpage, and there you can see a list of the topics of things they're looking to fund. So I'll just show you, for example, one is NSF. NSF, each agency has their own personality. Theirs, I would say, they're very technology focused. They're kind of agnostic about the application. You could have an innovative business application, but they're interested in what is the technology or secret sauce behind it. And they want to fund things that are going to revolutionize an industry. They don't want to fund evolutionary incremental improvements. They don't fund fundamental basic research. They do a ton of that in their other grants through the universities. They also don't want to fund straightforward engineering or app development. They want to fund what I call applied research, which is going to lead to commercialization. But there's still some risk. There's still those technical questions you need to answer to demonstrate feasibility. And then these last 2 criteria, these kind of apply to all the agencies. You have to show that there's a market for it, because the purpose of the SBIR program is to commercialize these technologies. So, is there a market for it? Is there unmet needs? And can you scale it into a business? So I mentioned NSF is one of the granting agencies. So they have these very broad topics. So they have 31 topic areas. So if you go to their website, you can find this. And when you click on each one of these, they have subtopics underneath them. For example, I was funded for the 3D print of houses under advanced manufacturing, but they have topics. They just added agricultural technologies not too long ago. We have a lot of people doing AI stuff. That's a hot topic. A lot of clients doing digital health. They have energy technologies, environmental technologies. They just added one called mobility, which is anything, moving goods and people around, whether it's rail, air, whatever it might be. Robotics. So you can see there's lots of different opportunities. So the first step is to find a topic defender. Second step is to reach out to the topic author, and then each agency calls them different things. Whoever that point of contact is, NSF calls them program directors. DOD calls them TPOCs, technical point of contact. So you want to reach out to them, explain what you're doing, and see if it's a fit for what they're looking to fund. That's kind of the second step in the process. And then, like NSF, one way to reach out, they actually require you to do a 2 to 3 page project pitch. So it's just short. There's 4 boxes that you fill out describing your technology and the challenges and who the market is and your company and team. And then you actually have to be invited to submit a full proposal. And then once you submit invited to do a full proposal, this is just a sample outline. I'm showing you NSF again. It's really similar to all agencies. Almost all of them have a 15-page project description of some sort. There's roughly 15 pages of writing, plus there's usually budgets and resumes and that type of thing that go with the application. Now, the purpose is to commercialize technology, so you have to have a commercialization plan. So you'll have to describe, the market, who's the target market, how big is the market, describe your company and team. Do you have the right team to both carry out the research and development plus commercialize it, get it to market? And then you have to, look at the competition too. what's the current state of the art, how you differentiate yourself from the competition. You usually want to do what I call a competitive landscape matrix, showing how you can compare to either the direct competitors or the competing technologies. And then commercialization plan, you have to talk about how you're going to finance it and how you're going to make money. What's your business model? Are you going to manufacture it? Are you going to license it? How are you going to make money? There are some commercialization assistance programs that are available. They give you up to $6,500 in phase one and $50,000 in phase two. Each agency has different things going on in that area. In addition to the technical proposal, you have to put together cost proposal, and this can be challenging because it's all government accounting. So you have to divide in the direct costs, indirect costs, and fee or profit, and that's something we can help you out to structure that budget, because most small businesses aren't familiar with things like indirect rates or something. That's kind of a foreign concept to them, that we can help assist with that. This is a sample. It's usually like a one-page budget where you break it down in direct, indirect, and fee or profit. So the nice thing about these grants too, cash flow wise, usually you get the money up front. If you can tap into all of it up front, they might withhold like $25,000 for the final report. So cash flow wise, they're a good deal. So after you put together a proposal, you do your technical proposal and the budget, and then you get ready to submit it. As I mentioned earlier, there's 11 different SBIR programs, and each one of the agencies has their own submission platform. You can see here, some use grants.gov, NSF has research.gov, that's proprietary, DoD has their own. So you have to learn the submission platforms for each one of those, and you have to register with each one of these. And there's several other registrations you have to do. You have what we call the SAM registration, System for Award Management. Anytime you're doing business with the federal government, whether it's a grant or contract, you have to have the SAM registration. And that's how they pay you. You put your things like your bank account information, and they'll electronically fund you into that. So a lot of this stuff can take some time, so you don't want to wait till the last minute on some of that. Once you submit, and then they're going to review it, and it's a slow process. It can take anywhere from 3 to 6 months, and these are the things that they look at for the review. Now, if you're declined, usually you're declined because you didn't follow the instructions. So read the instructions. It tells you 1-inch margins and 11-point type and so many pages. So don't want to screen out for that. But then they also look at your work plan. Is there enough details? Do you have the right team? Is it innovative? Is it a fit for what they're looking to fund? If you're declined, you can resubmit. I was declined the first time around, and I took the review panel comments, made some changes, improvements, resubmitted, and was successful the second time around. So I have a lot of clients I work with, and to resubmit. So you can get that feedback from usually 3 or 4 reviewers who give you the strengths and weaknesses of that. We're out of time. I won't cover this. I just real quickly, there's other funding opportunities. If you're raising money, a lot of them do have what they call phase 2B funding, where they'll match a third-party investor like an angel or VC funding. That's something to keep in mind. But those, you have to have that phase 2 grant typically to be eligible to apply for. So in conclusion, it's about $4 billion available, and this is for innovative R&D. So it's not, again, for business development, marketing, manufacturing. It could be for R&D to prepare to manufacture, but it's specifically for the research and development phase. So it's not for, regular operations. It's, hard to get grants for just operations of a business. And the keys to success is to, be responsive to the agency need with their topics, and reach out to them and make sure it's a fit. And then have that commercialization plan, how you're going to actually commercialize it, and a detailed work plan, and having that right team as well is important. So they're going to look at who you have on the team that can carry it out. So I guess I will stop there to give us a few minutes for any questions that we might have.
Great stuff, Chuck. I want to just throw in right now that, SBDC clients, what you can do is you can actually reach out and actually talk to Chuck. So if you want to talk to Chuck, go ahead and actually sign up as an SBDC client, or anywhere in Central California for that matter. And Chuck will meet with you. He'll Zoom with you and meet with you on a one-on-one basis, and really lay the foundation for receiving one of these grants. He can let you know up front if it's where your issues are, where you might have strengths and weaknesses, but it's really an extraordinary opportunity to reach out and learn more if you are serious about applying for an SBIR STTR grant.
It doesn't cost anything. We're not allowed to charge for a service. We don't take any equity either. We get paid an hourly rate through our grants that we get, but as advisors, but no cost to you.
Such a deal, Chuck. So here, let me ask you a question first. One of them is I'm curious about ag tech opportunities and curious to hear whether anyone is working in that area or maybe some stories you'd like to share on ag tech, Chuck.
Yeah. Yeah, I've actually had a few ag tech clients recently, and as I mentioned, first one you think of would be the USDA, but now the National Science Foundation is starting to fund ag tech type businesses. And I've had everything from I just had a client last week that was developing a kind of a drone that could spray onto different fields, particularly if you had a small field where it's too big for or too small for a crop duster or something to use, but you could use this drone to come in and target the spraying on. So I've had that type of client. I've had clients that are dealing with fertilizers, and there's all sorts of different stuff in ag tech that's coming up, and that's one of the things I mentioned that personalities are a little different. Like NSF, you do have to focus on some technology aspect, but like the USDA, they're more economic development focused, I would say. So they have topics around like small farm support and those type of things. So there's lots, and then in addition to SBIR, I've had clients that actually then go on to go after state grants, as the state also has the California Department of Food and Agriculture grants as well. So that'd be something you could look at too in that area.
Great stuff. Okay, so we're trying to improve those odds. You see the odds being basically for phase one around 10% and trying to get those better. Phase two, it was like Chuck mentioned, about 40%, which are still really good odds for programs that have this much money in them. And then the commercialization phase. So using Chuck helps you kind of reduce your odds. Let's move on to our next question, and it's where can I find SBDC services in the Salinas Valley? And that would be, the location is 123 Capitol Street, Suite B. Their phone number is 831-216-3000. And their director there is Roger Gilbert. Reach out to Roger and his staff, and he'll gladly work out with you and assist with you and all those good things. See if any other things going through the chat box here. We'll see that greetings and salutations and information on the SBA Disaster Office in Lake Isabella, information on the Corporate Transparency Act, the SBA lending programs, kind of a little bit on the grant. Maureen has also added things for America's Seed Fund to get more information on SBIR.gov and the National Science Foundation, or the wonderful acronym of NSF. So a couple people are asking for Chuck's contact information. Chuck.
Yeah, so I didn't put it on the slide because I'm sure if you want me to do that, but feel free to reach out to me. My email, you can reach me is Charles Eason, EASON, at comcast.net. And yeah, I'd be happy to work with you. Or you can just reach out to any of the SBDCs in the Central California region too. And I'm set up as a regional advisor to work with them. So they can then do the introduction as well. So
a lot of great stuff, Chuck. A lot of great opportunity. And as we've discussed many times, we don't get our fair share here in the San Joaquin Valley and throughout Central California. And we want to improve those odds, and we want to bring some of these SBIR grants to fruition, build some innovation and technology companies. So please, if you got a great idea or even a not so great idea, reach out.
yes, definitely.
Okay, any last comment, Chuck?
No, just that I encourage you to take advantage of this program, and it's money grants, like I said, you don't have to pay them back, and it's non-dilutive funding. And if you can get some of this funding early on too, then when you do go to raise money, you've de-risked your technology, your company, so your company is worth more. So then you don't have to give up as much equity later on. So it's good to try to pursue some of this early seed funding through the non-dilutive funding.
Great stuff. Well, Chuck, appreciate it. Appreciate it as always, you coming on. Look forward to working with you with some of our local businesses. And that's going to wrap up webinar Wednesday number 327. So for Chuck Eason and also for Javier Caltenco, I'm Kelly Bearden. Everybody have a fantastic week, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye, everyone.